right, guys. So there's a lot of things going on in the news today. If you've been keeping track of things going across the world, everybody is, we thought that we were sitting on knife's edge in the last 8 weeks with the things that have been happening, before the election, in the election, after the election, and especially after last week. And not only have things just been quite dramatic, shall we say, it's almost getting to the point of time where it looks like things are getting explosive. So I came across an article because there's so many articles that are out there, and this is over at the Gateway Pundit. And the article says Democrats are drafting legislation to criminalize Trump rallies. They're going to classify them as domestic terrorism. So it's a short article, but it basically says this: we are up against demons. Democrats in both the U.S. House and Senate are drafting legislation to classify Make America Great Again rallies as domestic terrorist activity. They're literally criminalizing their opposition, and they are trampling the constitutional right to free assembly. Wow. And these are the same Democrats that supported Black Lives Matters, BLM, the violent group that caused $2 billion in destruction in 2020. And of course, some of the quotes that came from that is, how about this? There needs to be unrest in the streets. And Kamala Harris said protesters should not let up. And of course, Maxine Waters says, if you see anybody from the cabinet in a restaurant, in a department store, at a gas station, you get out and create a crowd. You push back on them and you tell them they are not welcome anymore, anywhere. And of course, Crazy Nancy said, I just don't know why there aren't uprisings all over the country. Maybe there will be. So what are they projecting? I mean, of course, where outrage is manufactured in the BLM riots, in the left-wing violence, it lasted for 7 months, condemned mostly by Republicans, encouraged by media and politicians. Police force used, 23 plus people shot dead, 700 officers injured, 150 plus federal buildings damaged, hundreds of small businesses destroyed, and there is no outrage. But in the Capitol, what they call the Capitol riot, which I would even call a riot, that was a gathering that was led by some saboteurs, provocateurs, that said, here's what happened. It lasted several hours as opposed to 7 months, condemned by all Republicans and Democrats. And I'm going to just say this: there was not a riot at the Capitol. It was a gathering of peaceful people. It was a handful of Antifa and some QAnon people that went into the Capitol, and all the videos show, except for this handful of people, is that it wasn't violent. It was condemned by all Republicans and Democrats. It was encouraged only by fringe political groups. Police force was used. 1 person shot dead, 14 officers injured, 1 federal building damaged, and no small businesses destroyed. And we have nationwide outrage. Where's the hypocrisy in that? So that's my article for today. There's a lot more to this story, but I want to bring you guys back in and let's talk about all of these events that are happening right now around the world, this hypocrisy that's taking place right before our very eyes, our very Constitution being challenged, and the fact that we have the judiciary, the Supreme Court, and the legislature unconstitutionally censoring the president of the United States, the mainstream media silencing his voice, the social networking platforms taking him off the air, and where President Trump cannot even use an email to email his supporters as to what's going on. This is dramatic. And the fact that they would come around and draft legislation saying that a Make America Great Again rally is now a domestic terrorist activity. we are on the brink of some, we've been talking about this thing. The brink is getting very close. We're right on the edge of different things. And, this season that we're in, what are we looking at? Where are we going? What are your thoughts on it? Sandy?
I want to just say something really quickly, because when you mentioned the gathering of people, because I know everybody here in our panel knows this, but what had happened is it wasn't all the patriots that were gathering. In fact, there were infiltrators from these other groups, from these leftist groups that had come in to create the havoc. And they led the way. So do not think it was the patriots that did it. The same kind of people that were in BLM and did the riots are the ones that did this thing. The other thousands of hundreds of thousands, and some reports say millions of people that were there were peaceful, and because it was two different groups. So and here's the next thing I want to say. I am one of those who has written my president and said, you are responsible. You took an oath to defend the Constitution of the United States and to protect, and therefore you can't leave office. Because that is, again, you are president right now. You are the lawful president that was elected by, when you count legal votes, et cetera, et cetera. The majority of America is with you. I wrote the president. I encourage you to go to whitehouse.gov too and say, do not remove yourself from this office.
Defend and
stand up and fight and protect our Constitution from foreign invaders, as well as those within our nation who have tried to destroy and will destroy, already are trying to destroy every vestige of this nation.
So let's qualify some of these things too. What happened at the Capitol this last week is there was something that was at disclose.tv. It says this is the first time the U.S. Capitol has been breached since it was attacked by the British in 1814. Well, that's not true. If you just look at a lot of the different things that have taken place in the Kavanaugh hearings. There were over 300 protesters that stormed the Capitol and stormed the hearings and protested and committed violent acts. And now, I think they said there was maybe 92 people that have been, they've had charges put against them for going into the Capitol this last week. So anyway, Eddie, Tammy, what are your thoughts?
Well, we need to run. We need to get out of here. What we've heard, and I'm sure you have heard too, you've heard Simon's video, the English fellow. Have you heard that one?
No.
He talks about the reason why Pakistan went dark the other night was that Trump stopped the sale of GE to China, if you didn't know that. And that he himself is in a very safe and secure, he being the president, is in a very safe and secure location after having signed the Insurrection Act. So we should be seeing people disappearing here shortly. And the beautiful thing is that, I don't know if y'all caught this, when Trump spoke at the mall, you understand his speech was extended.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
He did that for a reason, to keep the people, his people, from getting caught up in what the Antifa and BLM, what would you call them?
Insurrectionists.
Oh, absolutely. They were posing as Trump supporters.
Yeah.
They had been bussed in by the Capitol Police and under black SUV escort. Is anybody at the house? That was all staged, and the incredible cry Trump's head after that was just absolutely beyond anything I have ever witnessed. But he purposely spoke long to keep them from being involved in that, which was absolutely, and it had a purpose. He could not institute or sign the Insurrection Act without him coming out, and this is why they tried to take it down almost immediately, when he told them to go home peacefully, because the president has to tell the insurrectionists to disperse before he can use that article. So that's what that accomplished.
Yeah.
And also the getting of Pelosi's laptop.
Right. It was.
That's where they found out about the sale of GE to China. Can you believe that? I mean, we're talking about one of our number one defense contractors was going to be sold, and it was a Democratic run operation.
They build all engines for our military aircraft, or the majority of them.
And this is what Trump stopped when he cut the power to Pakistan, when they interrupted it half the country. It interrupted and stopped the sale of GE to China. Because precious saints of the Most High God, we are in a war.
Yeah,
it hasn't started getting violent on the local level yet, but we have heard and we have witnessed all of these leftists, these extremists, and I'm putting Pelosi, Schumer, AOC, every one of them have come out and stated emphatically they want you and I dead.
Yes.
There were only 7 senators that objected to the count of the false electoral college.
That's sad.
Out of the 500 some people that are up there,
100 senators.
There's 100 senators and there's 400 and something representatives.
435.
And
weren't there a lot more senators before this happened that said they were going to object?
Yes. Yeah.
So when Pence did his thing, then they jumped on the bandwagon with Pence.
Yeah. Well, and if you all didn't know this, Pence received a gold coin. There's a video up at banned.video, BANNED.video, where it shows that he receives a gold coin for his role in what happened last week. And so
he played with the leftists, right?
Yeah, it looks like there's been quite a big deal. And by the way, Neon Revolt came out with a big article this last week, actually over the weekend, and it was a 3-part series on this article talking about Vice President Pence, and he going back to before the President Trump's term. He goes back with Rosenstein. Remember that guy who was in charge of the DOJ? And
did you know Rosenstein personally eliminated the 2 men that took out Seth Rich? That's another story.
That's in the Neon Revolt article. And so they go way back because the purpose was to remove President Trump, put Vice President Pence into power, and then Rosenstein would be put in as vice president. And that was their whole goal. And so Vice President Pence appears to be has been out to get President Trump
from the beginning.
So I don't suspect that Vice President Pence will be around much longer. I'm still holding out hope that there's going to be a second term for President Trump. Not sure how it's going to work out, but I'm holding out hope.
Who's going to be his vice president?
No.
Oh,
General Michael Flynn.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Imagine, buddy, we'll be screaming, man. It'll be like the 4th of July celebration, buddy. He would be fantastic.
Yeah.
Hallelujah.
So, and with this Resurrection Act,
Tova beat us too. She knew it too.
Yeah, so. There you go. With the Insurrection Act being signed, don't be looking for a nationwide martial law, but there'll probably be certain elements in the nation that'll be locked down because of the things that will be happening.
Explain Insurrection Act.
So the Insurrection Act gives President Trump the power to use the U.S. military, I believe, out in the streets to maintain order and to gather up those that are that have sedition and treason against the government here in the United States.
I pray that he does it, especially before they start this thing trying to impeach him again. I don't want to go there, but that's ridiculous.
You can see it's quite a battle that's going on. And again, you got the 3 parts of government, and they're silencing the president side of it. You know, there was times
let's put it, they're silencing the majority of America.
But this is the thing, is that when we go back to the Obama administration, how many times have we wanted the administration silenced because of the evil that they were doing?
But you know what? We didn't do it.
But we still had a balance of power between the Supreme Court and the Congress. But now there's not that balance.
Well, they put the on the street to be prepared for a minimum of 10 days, possibly as much as 30 days of no power, no internet, to be able to, reside in place. Is kind of like a COVID lockdown.
Yeah.
And they specifically say, do not interfere with what's going on, because the plan, they have it all mapped out as to what we're going to do. And I'm praying for President Trump's complete and total safety and success, and that they are successful in rounding up. The magnitude of this is overwhelming.
I want him all rounded up, all of them.
So here's another quote
before you do that, I have a question. Eddie, since you said that, Eddie and Tammy, are there things that you would advise us as a people to do in the midst of this, as people of faith, if this does happen, which I pray it does? Is there things that you would advise us with your knowledge of or just sit back and watch?
Well, real quick, it's interesting how the Lord has had me go into reading about David and how this is related to what we're going through right now. Last night, I was reading about David and Ziklag. We all felt like we were at Ziklag when this thing happened at the White House or at Congress, where they raided Congress and they read the supposed Electoral College. We were all in a Ziklag. But what did David do? He encouraged himself in the Lord. We've been encouraged by different people like Dutch Sheets and other groups that are, constantly saying we're in this for the nation. We're not necessarily in it for President Trump, but yes, he is our lead. He is our King David right now, so to speak. And what happened at Ziklag? His people wanted to kill him. A lot of Trump supporters wanted to kill him because they thought, he had thrown in the towel. Well, he hasn't. And what did God do for David? He told him to go up against the Philistines and take back what the enemy has stolen. And in 2 days, the entire group of Philistines that had raided Ziklag and stolen all of their families and all their possessions were dead, and not one hair was hurt on any of the captives. So they all got everything back. They got even more of the spoils because of the possessions that the Philistines had just raided the Egyptians and stole a bunch of stuff from the Egyptians too. So they got all that treasure too. So I'm encouraged by that, because I know God is going to turn this around, and that he is going to protect all of our soldiers and all of the good guys that are going against the enemies of the state right now. And I'm thrilled. I'm encouraged in the Lord. That's what I'm.
And Tovah hits the nail on the head as far as preps go. She's got it. She's got it down. She said,
Tova said, has already been out and gotten supplies, and make sure to top off your gas tank and get a few things, all that you'll need for 30 days, especially prescription drugs. Most of all, pray and praise.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Hallelujah.
And one of the big things that's really been a psyop against the American people, and I think Robert Barnes and Alex Jones were talking about in yesterday's show. One of the things is that the QAnon thing that's been going on has really been a big psychological operation against the American people, versus just coming straight out and talking truth to people. And with that, it's led a lot of people astray, and has caused a lot of people to be inactive. And it's said, sit back, get the popcorn, watch the show, all that sort of stuff. This is a time that where we must be active, and a lot of people, over 1 million people went to Washington this last week. But on the other hand, we still have the power of voicing our opinion. We can call our representatives and write them, our senators, our representatives. We need to be getting in contact.
Can we grab them out?
We can. You can say those things. And you can also say this. You can also contact your state senators and representatives. Very, very important. And your governor, because it is about the United States with a small s. And because it is supposed to be a confederation of states and not a heavy weighted, centrally controlled government. That's the way the Constitution was written. So the power really lies in the states, and we're supposed to make sure. And I'll tell you this, our Attorney General, Bill Paxton, he is really on top of different things here in Texas, and he's going to be bringing some lawsuits and against big tech and them removing all of our voices from these different platforms. So beware of that. And, I'd say even contact your attorneys general in your states and say, join Bill Paxton and let's stop the censoring. Yeah.
From removing our
they're using if they're going to have a big platform like that, then they need to be held accountable. If Black Lives Matter and Antifa can incite violence, if Iran can incite violence and stuff against the United States, China, etc., being using those platforms, then either censor them or allow us to have free speech, because we're not advocating violence. We're advocating that we maintain a constitutional republic.
But they don't want truth out. They want the people ignorant and zombied.
Yeah. I'm going to do one other thing real quick. I want to hear from Mark, and then we're going to move on to the tour portion. And this has to do a quote from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She said, "The whole point of protesting is to make people uncomfortable. Activists take that discomfort with the status quo and advocate for concrete policy changes. Popular support often starts small and grows. To folks who complain, protest demands makes others uncomfortable. That's the point." Well, she was actually, of course, saying that by supporting Black Lives Matter and the riots and stuff going on this last summer. In fact, she also said, "Let this moment radicalize you." She came out in Twitter in September 20th, 2020. So it's okay for them, but not for us. So they'd rather legislate away our rights, yet continue to support their own violent means of insurrection. So, and that's what we're seeing right now. By the way, the insurrection is not of the people of the United States. The populists supported President Trump. It is the insurrection, and the coup d'état is coming from the left to overthrow our constitutional republic. So, Mark, what are your thoughts?
Well, I don't want to go there like Sandi, but first of all, let me preface this with saying that no man goes into battle without first counting the costs. And I also add to that we need to know our enemy. And our enemy here in the United States is not stupid. Okay, all of this was planned. All of this is put into effect by smart people that have been deciding this for a very long time. What I wanted to get at on what Sandi said, and I don't want to get into it either, but if the president is impeached, he can never hold office again. And they know that. So I have... On contemplating the Constitution this week, I have two Our Constitution in the News articles that I'll be covering. And before I talk about that real quickly, last Thursday on the show, The Next Chapter, John Craig was on the show with Sandi and I and Sherry, and that was an incredible show. It is up on the website right now as We're Living Through History Part 2, and I put it as a Part 2 based on my show on Wednesday, Contemplating the Constitution, which is We're Living Through History Part 1. I can almost really even title this section of this show, the news part, as being part 3 of that, because we're just continuing on. You're talking about your representatives from your state that are in the House of Representatives to stay in contact with them. I get an email from them, from mine, David Rouser, my North Carolina representative. And last week, I actually used one of his latest emails as my base outline for my Constitution News article. I will be doing the same thing this week because he came out with a follow-up to that. And I want to read just a small portion of it that I have, that I'll have on my show on Wednesday on Contemplating the Constitution. Congressman David Rouser continues. Based on some of the interviews I saw of those protesting peacefully, many have a deep-seated distrust of our government institutions. This by no means excuses the thuggery and violence of those who participated in the assault on the Capitol. They should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Distrust is why 39% of this country believe the election was rigged, according to a recent Reuters poll, including 17% of Democrats. Some say that because President Trump has said it was rigged. I have no doubt that there are those who think that because he said it, but there are many very smart, independent-minded voters who have instinctively come to that conclusion on their own. They don't need Trump to say it to come to the conclusion. They're smart people. They come to it on their own. So I will be talking in depth about that, and I think here's my understanding, and quite honestly, I'm 66 years old. I really wish, and I say this almost every day, I wish I'd have started studying the Constitution when I was 25 or 30.
Yeah.
I really do, because literally the Constitution is our right. It is our Constitution, but what it does is it tells us what our rights are. And without knowing that, you don't know what your rights are. You're just flimming in the wind, you know. You're saying stuff, and I constantly hear this is constitutional or unconstitutional, and 90% of the time, most people don't have a clue what they're talking about. They're just saying things. And I have to say that realistically, it's been a real eye-opener to me to understand the Constitution and what's behind it and what the spirit is behind the Constitution. And it is an incredible document. But there are a massive amount of things that are happening in the news that do have to do literally and realistically with the Constitution. And so this whole thing, I think one thing that has really bothered me is to come to find out that most people in this United States don't have a clue what happened last January. Why did Trump have a rally in downtown Washington, D.C.? Most people just think it was his last big attempt to get the people riled up. It's just they picked Wednesday, January 6th to do that. And it's not true. Why were they going to Congress? Why didn't they just disperse after Trump's speech on January 6th last Wednesday? That most people in this country do not realize that January 6th was an historical day that went along with the Constitution, that in Congress, they were counting the electoral votes, and even maybe there were only 7 senators, but there were 7 representatives along with them from the different states that were standing up to protest against, and they have the right, based on the Constitution, they have the right to stand up and disagree with the count because of the injustice and the illegal activity in the United States. This was historic, and this was happening in Congress on January 6th while all this was going on. But most people just think that Trump had this rally to get things all stirred back up and then sent people to Congress to protest. Well, that's not what it was about at all. These people, I wonder how many people, the 250,000 or million, what some people say, in the audience actually knew that history was happening in the historical legal process. Constitutional process was happening in Congress at the time that all this happened. I wonder how many people know, and I'll bet it's an extremely small percent. You got to know what's really going on in this country. You got to realize, don't be stupid. Figure out what's going on, because it's going to affect you, period. It is going to affect each and every life. You think coronavirus affected every life in the United States? Wait till Biden gets in office. It will affect every single person's life from now on. And once again, I think the biggest issue, because actually I'm going to be doing an article this Wednesday in Our Constitution in the News about a law professor that is not a Trump supporter, that is actually coming out and saying that the reason they're using to impeach the president is actually against the Constitution itself. Not that he was inciting riots, but what the reason is they're using to impeach the president is actually against the law to do themselves. And I'll be talking about that Wednesday morning on Contemplating the Constitution. So,
well, that sounds like that's going to be a really interesting one, because they've been doing everything they can, every tool out of their arsenal, whether legal or not legal, against President Trump. And they've been doing it since before he took office.
Right. The number one reason, though, number one, is if he's impeached, he'll never be able to hold any office ever again for any reason.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's my say. And I'm good.
Very good. Yeah, no, Mark, awesome.
Those instigators will be out of the way before that happens.
Yeah, he's going to have to suspend Congress. He really will, and start arresting every one of them.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
I wholeheartedly support him in that.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I encourage people to even contact the president and support him in that way too.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And I'll tell you, this thing's really fluid. I think there's a lot of stuff going on. I think there's a lot of rumors out there. We must be careful to kind of work through those rumors, look for not just one report, but multiple reports from multiple sources that are unrelated. Be careful about that. I mean, there were rumors that President Trump and the Joint Chief met up at Camp David over the weekend with Mike Flynn, and even Vice President Pence apparently was there. That was a rumor. There's all sorts of different things. We don't know what's going on. It's so fluid that things are changing, and we're getting information. We're getting, some of it's good, some of it's a psychological operation, some of it's good intel. But here's the thing: we don't. The worst thing that we could do is say, "Well, I'm just a little person, and there's nothing I can do about it. It's just going to have to play out." That's the worst thing to do. We still have a voice. We still have constitutional rights. We still have representatives in our government that we need to let our voices.
And if you don't, you won't have a voice ever again.
That's right.
That's right.
That's right.
Right.
So, all right, great discussion.
We are richly blessed to bring you what we believe is the fullest, most diverse, yet up-to-date progressive teachings, discussion, and prayer programming you can find anywhere on this planet. Be sure to take the tour of the MessianicLambRadio.com website. I'm Susan Hoogie, thanking you for joining us on the Messianic Lamb Video Network.